Hi everybody, good to be back. Peace, love, and prosperity. I've been battling residual COVID. It's called GI COVID, where it messes up your digestive system. And apparently a lot of people are suffering from it, so I've been battling that. I also have tennis elbow now, which is a direct result of me picking things from the back of my neck from the Morgellons. I have to be honest, every time I think I'm at the end, there seems to be more, and sometimes it bothers me more than other times. I hesitate to say it, but I still think I'm on the edge of getting rid of all of it, but only time will tell for sure. I want to thank everybody who's sent in comments, that I've spoken to. I've made a lot of new friends from across the globe, and I really appreciate that. I love hearing people's own stories, theories, ideas. I think that it is this community that is going to inevitably solve the problem, as opposed to doctors and medical community who tells us that we're just picking things because we like to pick things, which is a complete insult to most of us. So I'm very appreciative of that, and I try to return everybody's, I try to respond to everybody's comments promptly, and I'm very grateful to all of you. One person suggested I should start a Morgellons Facebook page, because a lot of people do feel very lonely with this disease. Nobody understands it. It's a struggle. It's a mental struggle. It really plays on your mind as well as your body, because it is so annoying. And so I think that's a really good idea. I'm going to work on that. So stay tuned for that. I've also finally got settled again. I had to move from where I was, and now I'm settled, and so I started writing again. I'm working on a book, and all your input about your own Morgellons will go into a file if I'll ask your permission, and I don't have to use your name, but that will be also part of a book. Maybe not this one, I don't know. I started off with the Bigfoot and the Bigfoot evidence. I do want to say everything is connected. The Bigfoot, the reptilians, the Morgellons, and all the other strange stuff with the rocks and the trees and the clouds and the alien grays. And all these things are all connected. I don't have all the answers. I'm on a mission, constantly searching for more answers, more clues, just like a lot of you. So I also want to say that I also want to tell you part of my story, so that you have an idea of how all this began. So I had graduated from college. I had got a 4-year degree, a bachelor's degree in human services from Goodwin College, and I was deciding what I wanted to do next. I was planning on going to law school. I got the books for the LSAT, and I began to study for the LSAT, and then COVID hit. So I know that law school is another 4-5 years on top of the 4 years I had already done to get the bachelor's degree. So I wanted to take time to think about it. In the meantime, they had a total lockdown. We couldn't leave our houses, so on and so forth. And I started just walking the neighborhood. I should also say that there's a very nice trail, which you've seen in my videos. It's near my house, and I had walked that trail. I made it a point to walk that trail at least once a day, and this had gone on for roughly about 5 years. I had walked that trail every day for about 5 years. And so when COVID hit, I started discovering Native American artifacts in the neighborhood where I lived, and I was fascinated by that. So I started collecting them, and that's where I stumbled into effigy stones. Now, I could write a whole book just on effigy stones, because they are an incredible, fascinating thing on their own. And they're connected to all this because of the mystery behind them, which some of them are carved or somehow made. Some of them don't have actual tool marks, and they're as old as the dinosaurs, and there's a lot of questions surrounding them. Most universities and scientists won't even study them. They're not considered evidence of anything. I guess they're considered to be subjective, but some of them are not subjective. And there's a whole story with that, with effigy stones, which I don't have time to go into. So let's see. I made a point to walk that trail every day. I mentioned that, and then after about the third year of walking that trail, I decided to take a more of a Zen approach in other words, instead of thinking about my own personal thoughts, my own journey, my own desires and dreams, I started to think about how the trees felt, how it felt to be a tree. I started to put myself in the sort of a Zen mindset with nature, sort of a transcendentalist connection with nature. And when I did that, I started to notice patterns in the woods, strange patterns. One of the first patterns I noticed was that within the short little trail, which is probably a third of a mile around in a circle, it goes around a swamp, and it's in my videos. It's not very long, maybe a quarter mile, third of a mile. Within that little area, 5 trees had been hit by lightning. 5 trees hit by lightning in a very small area. So that was the first thing I noticed. I thought was very odd. Then I also noticed the way certain tree limbs were positioned to lean up against a tree, almost like somebody was building a structure, and there's no way they could have fallen that way naturally. I thought either the hands of some intelligent creature, maybe kids playing possibly, but something had to have created these forms and these patterns. It just didn't look like something that was natural to me. At the same time, there was a pile of rocks out there, and one of the rocks I noticed, if you watch my other videos, that it matches the claw mark on the tree. Well, those particular rocks, there's a pile of them, and I now believe that they used to be a structure which is similar to the rock root cellar structures that they have throughout New England that are so mysterious. Nobody knows why they're there. They line up with the solstice, and nobody understands them. And I think this used to be one of those. That's my conclusion. And a long time ago, it was just flattened and all the rocks are scattered there. So I was looking for effigy stones, and one of the things I noticed about them is that there was always like a dual face thing to them, where it was like 2 faces, at least 2. And a lot of times, there was multiple images that would come out of one rock, and the rock would have these things, but they weren't carved. There was no tool marks, there was no chisel marks, anything like that. It was almost like the rock was just formed that way, but very, very strange. So this is when I started to look into what the Native Americans had said about Bigfoot. And just to give you an idea of some of the most important ones, were that they could disappear right in front of you, like they could be walking a few steps and disappear. They also said that they would not bring them up because if they started to talk about them, they would show up. They were extremely telepathic. They could read your minds. They lived for thousands of years. If one person in a hunting party could see them, not necessarily everyone else could. They were super fast on their feet. They could change into other animals. They would sometimes steal children. If they took an adult, often they would you would never find any signs of them at all. They would pull you into the ground and eat the bones and everything, is how it was phrased. And there was good ones and bad ones, just like people. And the mean ones were really mean, and the good ones were, you could actually deal with them and almost trade with them, which is what people say about gifting. People say you can gift to the Bigfoots. So I learned all these things about what the Native Americans had said about these Bigfoot creatures. And the telepathic part got me thinking. So I started trying to communicate with it, because I've always been very, very in tune, is what I call it. You could call it psychic, call it clairvoyant. You know, it comes and goes. I can't always control it, but it is there, and it's something that I've worked on. It's something that I've studied. I spent a lot of time studying prophecy, psychic, just for that reason, because I've always had this certain ability. And I'm sure it's not as strong as some people's, but it's probably stronger than others. Nonetheless, it's something that I studied and paid attention to, so I thought perhaps I could communicate with it telepathically. And when I did that, that was when some doors started to open up, and I went out to the trail one day, and I noticed it looked like there were certain things that were there that weren't there the day before, and almost like they were left for me. And so that is when I came across one of the trees, which was hit by lightning, and it looked from a distance like it had two faces on it, similar to the rocks. I call it the two-faced tree to this day, the two-faced tree. I'll make a video about it. Now that I've mentioned it, I'll make a video about it. And so I went to the two-faced tree, and I looked inside, and that was where I found this piece of wood. Now recently somebody asked me, how is a piece of wood, a rotten piece of wood, evidence of Bigfoot? Well, keep in mind, I already felt there was a communication going on between us, telepathically. It's almost indistinguishable from your own thoughts. So you have to sort of be open, and then these sort of impulses come, and my impulse was to go to that tree and look inside. It was inside the tree, and when I discovered this, I literally, my hair stood on end, because in this piece of wood, there are actually entities praying in front of these sort of obelisks. Now the other thing about these, they are so good with rocks, with art. They're incredible artists, is what the only way I can put it. And so that was something I always kept in my mind, that the art as a mutual spot for us to sort of agree that, and their art was amazing. So I discovered this, and if you look, it looks like a rock. The tree looks like a rock. The wood looks like a rock, and they can make rocks look like wood, and they can do all these other amazing things. But I'll show you this in more detail, and you'll understand. There are little creatures here praying in front of obelisks, and there are also a lot of other things. I'll show you up close. Anyway, the piece is very delicate. Some things have already fallen off it. But when I pulled it out, I didn't know what I had. I brought it home. I just thought it was interesting. And when I looked at it up close with a magnifying glass and I saw creatures praying in front of obelisk and faces carved, looking like Bigfoot faces, all these, there's so much more to that piece than I could even show you right now. But my hair stood on end. And then, as I felt like I was communicating with this creature, I found this other rock right in the trail. And the reason this one is so important is because it was almost like it was put there for me to see. I mean, it's the only way I can describe it. And I'm going to show you some things about this. First of all, there's actually two rocks. Okay, perhaps you can't see it. See this? This actually moves. It's two rocks. And it's in there so tight, you can't take it out, but it moves. Thirdly, it looks like a Sasquatch creature. Looks like a Sasquatch creature. Hairy, big, hairy creature. And look at the side. Look at the profile of the side. See that? So you have like the typical big long arm hanging, hunchback, his head down in front of him. Look, see? See that? Then you look at the back. You've got this kind of face staring at you, creepy face. Turn it sideways. Looks like a dog. Turn it this way. This way. It's like almost like a human skull type thing. This way. And this way. Fairies. Now, again, there is so much stuff to see on this rock that I can't do it justice with just this videotape. But I've given you some clue to why this is so relevant and why that piece of wood is so important. Because when you tie it all in with the story, and so this is the book, this is the first book that I'm going to write about. But since then, I've collected so much other physical evidence, it's incredible. Now, I have a tooth, which I'm afraid to give to any type of scientific testing, university, paleontology, because I don't want it to disappear. Just like the giant skulls that are in museums, people go to see them, and somehow they've disappeared. So this evidence tends to, every time I watch Unsolved Mysteries, all these ancient aliens, there's always some great discovery, and then somehow it disappears. So I'm afraid of that happening to some of the things I have. So I'm presenting them directly to the public. And that's why I'm going to write this book. I'm going to take photographs of some of the stuff. I'm going to explain it in detail, and I'm going to bring it right to the public. This way, if it disappears after that, at least people understand what's going on. Now again, all this stuff is connected. The reptilian thing. As I was investigating all this stuff and communicating telepathically with this Bigfoot creature, that is when the Morgellons started. So it's like, to me, it feels like when you open this door, and allow these entities, whether they're spirits, whether they're extraterrestrials, whatever, when you open that door, all sorts of things come through, and it felt like the reptilian kind of cut off our conversation, and I end up with two big prong marks in my leg, and that started the misery of Morgellons as I was investigating and telepathically communicating. Now, someone said, how do you know the reptilian wasn't pretending to be the Bigfoot? And I don't know that. And that's a perfectly legitimate question. I did not know the Greys were the same things as reptilians until I saw it in a book. And I still don't know that that's 100% true, but I think so. I believe that's true. Now, are there good reptilians, bad reptilians? I don't know. They say there was good Bigfoots and bad Bigfoot creatures. That's what Native Americans say. I don't know. Anyway, this video is long enough. I just want to give you a background on how I got where I am. There's much more to tell, and I'd love to share it with you, but I'm going to flesh it all out in a book because videos just can't do it. But again, I'm grateful for all the people who are subscribing, who are telling me about their Morgellons, and including their own thoughts, ideas, studies, theories. It's all relevant. And so, God bless you all. Thank you for watching my channel. Peace, love, and prosperity.